Welcome back to another episode of Hope for Your Life, where we believe there's always hope, no matter what situation you're going through. So don't give up. There is a way. There is hope. We've been talking about stress management and just giving you a tip, one tip for stress management each episode. In the last episode, we talked about planning ahead and specifically planning your week at the start of the week or at the end of your last week, planning for the next week, making sure you've got everything, your appointments, meetings, everything in clear view ahead of you. And just organizing in that way alone reduces the stress because chaos leads to stress, right? So having a clear, orderly, organized plan before you helps to reduce stress. And we kind of compared that to a financial budget. Only with this, you're budgeting time and energy, right? So I want to continue down that road a little bit, but offer a new tip. And I just want to state a fact, okay? It's a fact for every human being on the planet. In fact, any living thing on the planet, right? And the fact is, it's very simple, it's very clear, and that is you cannot do everything. You cannot do everything, period. It's simple as that. Now, we know this, but we don't always act like we know it. Sometimes it just seems like we forget that. But this should be a guiding principle when it comes to stress management. You should have that. That should be a foundational rule when you're thinking about managing stress. When you're feeling overloaded, when you're looking at all the things you have to do, in the back of your mind, there needs to be that rule or that principle that says, I cannot do everything, okay? And so just like a financial budget, right? You do not have inexhaustible income, right? So unless you're Jeff Bezos or you're 2% of the world's population that just has endless flow of money, you don't have inexhaustible income. So therefore, your expenses need to fit within the resources that you have. Well, it's even truer. It's even truer for time and energy, right? No matter how much money you have, no matter who you are in the world, you do not have endless time. The saying is there's only 24 hours in a day. Well, really, there's less than 24 hours in a day. There's less than 24 hours in a day to be active, right? Because you need sleep, you need rest. Your body must have that in order to survive, right? So we're working with less than 24 hours in each day. There's a limit to the things that you can do. So therefore, because we have a limit, because we don't have inexhaustible time and energy, we must learn the art and the power of saying no. That's right, no. We've got to learn how to set those boundaries. So perfectionists, those of us who are perfectionists, those of us who are overachievers, overworkers, pleasers, helpers, all of those are great attributes, but we must get comfortable with saying no. And sometimes that can be difficult because we think we're being mean when we say no to people and things. We think that that's rude or that's disrespectful, but really it's the opposite. We're really being kind and respectful of people when we say no to things that we know we really can't handle or that's overloading us. Right? And I'll give you an example, personal example. Some time ago, I was asked to take on a role with a charitable organization. And it was a volunteer position, but it was a role of responsibility. And I knew that, I had a lot going on professionally and personally that really this was going to tip the scales of stress for me in the wrong way. So, but I like this organization. I like the cause and what they're doing. I love the people, and I wanted to strengthen those ties and just be a part of this thing. And I didn't want to say no. So I said yes. And it wasn't long after I started feeling that responsibility that I realized I really couldn't give my all to this. I couldn't give 100%. You know, I was coming to meetings sometimes unprepared and sometimes missing meetings and missing activities that we had planned. And eventually there was a mutual recognition that I just really could not give what is required to really do this well. And I decided to step away from that and just help out in other ways that didn't require that level of commitment. Now, it would have been kinder for me and more respectful for me to say no at the start. Hey, look, I can help you out in other ways, but this level of commitment is a little too much for me. Let's look to somebody else who can really give 100%. So somebody else who could really give their all could have been serving for months in that position instead of somebody who really didn't have the time. So no is very respectful at times and is actually kind to you and to the other person, right? So we've got to learn to do that. If you are allowing somebody who is functional, who is able to take care of themselves, to depend on you for a whole lot of things that they should be doing themselves, guess what you're doing? You're helping them to learn how to be irresponsible, a pattern of being irresponsible. And it's eroding their self-confidence, the confidence to know that I can do these things. I can achieve these things without depending on other people. It would be kinder to say, look, these are things that I'm not going to do, or I'm not going to allow you to rely on me for, because these are things that you're able to do, and I believe that you can do. It would be more respectful of that person and yourself to say no, right? And sometimes that no is internal, is psychological. You've had a rough day at work, there's a lot going on, and you're tempted to carry that into your house when you should be having family time, you should be resting from all of that. That's the time to say no internally, psychologically. This is the cutoff. I'm not going to be mulling over this and processing this in this time and space. That's a time for no. And certainly when we look at that planning week or that week that's planned ahead and we see all the demands and we see that we're being overloaded, it's overcrowding our time to rest and our time to rejuvenate, then we got to reevaluate some things that we thought were just indispensable. And I guarantee you, some of the things that we think are indispensable, we can live without. We can survive without it. Then it's time to say no to those things. There has to be a cutoff. There has to be a boundary that protects our health. And let me end by saying this. The flip side of it is that we've got to get comfortable with saying yes to ourselves. Yes to self-care. Yes to a time where we come aside and we work on our physical, our emotional, our spiritual health. There has to be a time for that. You know, we wear multiple roles of responsibility, and for some reason we feel like we have to keep going, and we feel guilty about taking time for ourselves, just to rest, just to have some recreation, or whatever it is. We feel guilty about that. It should really be the opposite. We should feel guilty for not taking out the time to rejuvenate, because I can't support or help anybody else. I can't be productive in my company if I'm falling apart, right? So yes to self-care, yes to taking a break, yes to rejuvenating. And we're going to talk more about that in the next episode. Tip for today, stress management for today. Learn how to say no to things that are overweighing you and adding way more stress to you than necessary, right? And yes to self-care. We're going to be back in the next episode with another tip on stress management. Subscribe to this channel, click that notification bell in the corner so that you will be notified on the next time the episode comes out. And you can certainly visit our website, submit suggestions for topics, hopeforyourlife.com. Go there and you can submit your suggestions, and we will be looking forward to hearing from you. We'll see you next time.